Way back in the spring of 1990, 10-year-old me was given a $5 allowance. In search of something to spend my money on, I came upon something fantastic at my local convenience store newsstand. It was then that I started a lifelong obsession with the gold standard of sequential art, the comic book. Now, as an old man, I have decided to open up some old boxes and dig into my comic book collection. I decided it's time for me to review and analyze the illustrations and artists that made me comics crazy. Hey everyone, this is Chris Crazy House, and I want to welcome you all to an all-new episode of Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. We are going back into the world of the Amazing Spider-Man, and we have another issue where Venom makes a comeback. So that's what we're going to be looking at in these next two episodes, Amazing Spider-Man 346 and Amazing Spider-Man 347. Where Venom makes his comeback to get his revenge on Spider-Man. And these are two really good issues here, and I'm looking forward to looking at them with you. So first, let's just start off with the cover. This is another cover drawn by Erik Larsen, and it is inked by Randy Eberlin. And we got a cover that is literally right in your face, where we got the character of Venom with an extreme close-up where you can only see basically his eyes and his mouth. And within his eyes, you can see Spider-Man kind of cowering in fear. So perfect setup cover for what we're going to be seeing in this issue, where Venom is coming back to get his revenge on Spider-Man. And just the vileness of it, and just the scariness of it, just how gross Venom's mouth looks. You know, this is the type of thing that, you know, young boys were into. We love stuff like this where there's some monster and some nastiness to it. You know, I very much enjoyed seeing this cover when it came out back in the 1990s. I remember when this issue was right on the shelf, I saw it from a distance, and I had to go pick it up because I enjoyed the issues with Venom in it before. And I reviewed those here on my Comics Crazy playlist. So if you go watch the very first two episodes of Comics Crazy, you'll see how I reviewed the last time Venom appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man. And, you know, picking up this issue, I knew I would enjoy it just from the cover because it had everything that I was looking forward to with this character being showcased. So we're going to crack it open here and get started with the Amazing Spider-Man 346. And once again, this is written by Dave Michelini. The illustrations are drawn by Erik Larsen, and the inking is done by Randy Eberlin. Okay, I wanted to make sure I pronounced his name correctly. So it starts off here at, you know, a news building, and we got one sly reporter in there. His name is Sly Finster, and he's in there looking up some dirt on some folks and trying to get some stuff that he can sell on the black market, some information he can sell on the black market. And right there in the screen, we see the reflection of Venom's face. And that's when we cut over here to the main splash page for the beginning of this issue. And we see Venom coming down from the ceiling looking just as gruesome as ever. And Sly scared as hell that this character is kind of looming over him. And I love this splash page. I just love the way that Venom is drawn here. I feel that at this point, Erik Larsen has really gotten the idea of how to draw Venom. You know, Venom always looks extremely menacing. He always looks extremely nasty. He's got the really big mouth here and a tongue kind of coming out and drool and slime. And he's kind of hanging through on his own webs here. So looking like a big, nasty spider looming down on you. And I think, like I said, Erik Larsen does a great job in drawing this character. And before Sly can even get out a few words, Venom winds up webbing up his mouth. And we see Venom's face part come off, and we see Eddie Brock revealed as he decides to do some research himself to find a way to get back as Spider-Man. And, as he's sitting there doing that, the character of Sly actually winds up suffocating because Venom covered both his nose and his mouth. So this character winds up dying, but we don't feel bad for him, and it still works within the realm of Venom's, personal code of honor and ethics, because this character was being a slime ball and looking to get information to sell on the black market anyway. So we don't care that he died, right? But it still shows that the character of Venom is very vicious in the fact that he just killed somebody and is looking to do the same to Spider-Man. So we cut here to Grand Central Station, the train station, and we see that Peter Parker and Mary Jane are there, and Peter is basically sending Mary Jane away. He knows that the symbiote is back, that the symbiote escaped from the science lab that he had taken him to and is rejoined with Eddie Brock. So he wants his wife out of the way because he's afraid that Eddie Brock will try to attack his wife in order to get to Peter Parker, because we all know that Venom knows Peter Parker's real identity. So he sends Mary Jane off, and even while he's kind of sitting and thinking to himself, he does run into his best friend Flash Thompson and Felicia Hardy, who we also know as the Black Cat. Once again, just making the observation that Erik Larsen likes to do these very vertical panels to tell a story. This is kind of like how he gets through a lot of his exposition. He'll create like a very tall vertical panel, and sometimes it'll keep going all the way through. But this one, we can see that it's divided. So the vertical panels are divided, and we see first Mary Jane going away. And then down here, we see Peter going back to his apartment and running into his best friends. And, the Black Cat notices that something's up with Peter and something's wrong with him. But in a nice way, he kind of shoos them off because he wants to avoid getting anyone else wrapped up in this situation with Venom. He doesn't want his friends to be hurt. And I really like this panel here of kind of showing the loneliness of Peter Parker at this point and the worry on his face. You can kind of see like his face is a little bit in shadow here. He's kind of looking down at the pavement as he's walking on. And, kind of seeing like maybe one person there, but it's kind of a lonely look for him. Even though he's in the middle of a city, he's still feeling very lonely and isolated in the fact that he's worried that Venom is looking for him. So he goes off into a diner to get some coffee. And one of the patrons of the diner asks, "Can you pass the ketchup?" And in doing so, Peter turns around to give him the ketchup, and he notices it's Eddie Brock. I love this scene because it shows that both Eddie Brock and Venom are not just your regular supervillain. They're almost very stalker-like. They're almost like an obsessed serial killer. And that's kind of, appropriate for the character because the symbiote was rejected by Peter Parker, and Eddie Brock had his journalist career ruined by Spider-Man. So that's why those two got together to get their revenge on Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So Peter pays his bill and decides that he wants to leave because he knows that, Venom will probably cause a ruckus within this restaurant and this diner. So he wants to get out of there as quick as possible with Venom and not hurt any innocent people. And as they go walking around, this is where we get the exposition as to how the symbiote is still alive. So basically, the character of Styx, who grabbed the symbiote and kind of caused it to melt off of Eddie Brock's body, the symbiote didn't actually die. It just kind of went into like a comatose state And once it recuperated, it went back to find Eddie Brock. And that's how they rejoined back together. So we get a scene where Eddie Brock and Peter Parker go into an alley, and you think they're going to have their first big brawl there. But what happens is they go down the alley, and there's a stick-up kid sitting in there wanting to get their money. And he's actually about to shoot Peter Parker because Peter Parker didn't have enough money in his wallet. And Eddie Brock gets real upset at this point because he doesn't want this robber to kill Spider-Man. He wants to do it. So he webs up the gun, grabs the robber by the neck, and slams him head first into a brick wall. And we get the very creepy panel of the symbiote starting to spread over Eddie Brock, saying, "You can't have him, he's ours." And I love this panel. I love the way it looks. You know, like I said, it very much gives you the psychology of what we're dealing with Venom. And the robber sees this and winds up passing out. I'm surprised he didn't pass out from getting his head slammed into the wall, but apparently just the shock of seeing this symbiote oozing out of Eddie Brock's skin is what was enough to make him pass out. And at this point, Peter Parker is actually gone from the alleyway, and we see that he's jumped straight up into the air and has stuck to the building. Once again, amazing panel work by Eric Larson. I think the vertical panels work very well in this case, where you can see Peter Parker up top, stuck on the wall, and, you know, way down in the alleyway, we can see that Eddie Brock has walked away, okay, because he's looking for Peter Parker but can't find him. So, you know, the Venom symbiote does not have a spider sense, so he can't sense when danger is around or where his opponent is. So he just walks away, figuring out that he'll find Spider-Man at some point later on. But once again, extremely well done with the panel work here. I love the way this panel looks of Spider-Man sticking up at the top and looking down, and the perspective is on point. So we cut here to Peter Parker. He decided that he's actually, you know, it's better or safer to stay at a hotel than to actually go and stay at his actual house. And he's staying in a really run-down hotel on the other side of town. And, you know, he's still trying to keep in touch with both his job and everything else. So he decides to call on the payphone, to call his home phone and listen to his messages. So this is in the time before cell phones, folks. So for all the youngins out there that don't understand this, you could actually call back to your house, and if you had an answer machine, you could listen to your messages if you pushed a certain sequence of buttons. Or maybe he even had like an answering service or something like that. But Peter calls back to his house and listens to his messages. He does get a message from the university, his university job, telling him that they had a breakthrough with some cryogenics, and that's going to come up later in the story. And then he clicks on to the next message, and it's Eddie Brock calling the house, saying, "Hope you have a good night's sleep." So once again, it just showcases that, you know, Venom / Eddie Brock is like a obsessed serial killer. He'll even call your house to annoy you or just to mess with you and let you know that he's looking for you. So we get Spider-Man swinging around town, thinking that he'll be able to, you know, hook his way back to the university. And unbeknownst to him, because the symbiote does not warn Spider-Man on his spider senses, Venom is literally swinging behind him. So as Spider-Man's swinging around and kind of looking in every direction, making sure that Venom's not following him, Venom winds up sneaking up on him and punching him dead in the face. And this is where the action kicks off, folks. We have some really good action sequences here with Venom and Spider-Man fighting each other. And it's made more interesting by the fact that, you know, Spider-Man's usual spider senses, where he's able to avoid danger, does not work with Venom. So Spider-Man crashes into a building, and Venom jumps over top of him, sticks to the building, and hits him with another haymaker, knocking him down to the ground. And before Spider-Man can fall and hit the pavement, he winds up sticking to the wall, and Venom decides to just jump down there and jump on him and hit him with another shot from his fist, and Spider-Man flips out of the way. So Very well done action. It's easy to tell what's going on here. We get a great idea of how Spider-Man is kind of on the ropes here. He's trying his best to kind of keep up, but Venom keeps hitting him with not just fists, but catching him unawares. So Spider-Man was able to flip out of the way and give a little bit of a kick to Venom. And I like the way his face looks here, because his face, like his eyes look a little bit sadder when he gets hit in the face. And Venom winds up flying into one of these patented New York water towers that I've never actually seen one where they have like the little water towers on top of the buildings, but I always see them in comic books and cartoons. But he hits the water tower, and now he's pissed off. Now he's really upset that he was kind of playing around with Spider-Man, because he wants to tear him apart at this point. So we see Spider-Man swinging through the neighborhood, and Venom is swinging after him. Spider-Man doing his best to keep ahead of Venom. And that's when his spider senses goes off, and he wonders, like, what is that? Because I know, the symbiote doesn't work with my spider senses, but it's a steel girder being thrown by Venom at Spider-Man. So at least that still works. So if Venom throws something at Spider-Man, his spider senses will pick it up. So we see Spider-Man trying to reposition himself in the air after avoiding getting hit by this steel girder. And Venom basically just launches himself at Spider-Man with like a flying headbutt. And they both wind up going through a brick wall and landing inside of a zoo. And the impact of them going through the wall, it knocks open some bars and some cages at the zoo. And the lion actually escapes and is about to attack some innocent people. But before it does, Venom actually stops the lion and gives Spider-Man a quick backhand. So, once again, Venom has a weird code of ethics. He doesn't like innocent people to be hurt. So, he saves the people. He webs up the lion. But what he wants is to basically get the lion out of the way so he can go out there and fight Spider-Man. And if you notice, there's like a funny little cameo here. It's real small, so it's hard to see. And I'll try to give you guys a close-up. But this is actually a cameo of The Simpsons. So we got The Simpsons here at the zoo, avoiding being, they just saw the witness the fight between Venom and Spider-Man and this lion being webbed up. So yeah, that's The Simpsons right there in his little cameo. So we get another great shot of Spider-Man webbing himself, flying and swinging over the city, swinging over a bridge. And this is where he comes in contact with Venom again. This time Spider-Man is kind of hiding behind the bridge as Venom kind of swings in. And as he does, Spider-Man hits him with a haymaker, knocking him right at us on the panel. And once again, you see like the little sad eyes on Venom when he gets punched in the face. And I like this, his mouth is always wide open and his eyes look real sad. And we got kind of like a weird off-kilter panel for the action sequence. So we started seeing more stuff like this during the early 90s. This is when we're getting into the Image age. And as I get into the reviews of those classic Image comics, we're going to see more panels like this. So we see Venom, he bounces off the bridge. And he says, "We are no longer amused." And as Spider-Man gets to this deserted building, where I think this is where they got the cryogenic stuff going on, he's sitting outside the door, and that's when Venom sneaks up behind him and bashes him right in the back of the head and hits him so hard that they both fly through the door. I love this panel. I think this looks like this is a great action sequence. The way Venom is kind of jumping in there and swinging and punching Spider-Man in the back of the head. Very vicious, and we know how deadly this fight is. I'm sure underneath that costume, Spider-Man has all types of bumps, bruises, and bloody spots going on. So Spider-Man goes into the lab, and he's asking one of the scientists there, he's like, "Hey, where's the cryogenic section?" And the lab tech points in one direction. So as Spider-Man swings off, we see that the lab tech was actually Eddie Brock. So he got ahead of Spider-Man and used the symbiote to transform into looking like a scientist. So Spider-Man goes into the control room, and We see the door slam behind him, and we see that this was all a setup by Venom. So Venom's the one that put out the whole story about the cryogenics lab so that Spider-Man would think that he had a way to defeat Venom, because Spider-Man was going to use this to freeze both Eddie Brock and the symbiote. But now Spider-Man is in the cryogenics room and Venom is on the outside in the control room. And this is where Venom uses it to freeze Spider-Man within the cryogenics lab. And he said, you know, yesterday we told that mugger you were ours and now you are. And we see, you know, a really nasty laugh here of Venom just, you know, laughing with glee that he's finally got Spider-Man frozen. And we're going to see what happens in the next issue with Spider-Man and Venom. But an amazing issue here of the Amazing Spider-Man. I love this story where Venom gets his revenge on Spider-Man. And we're going to see more of that in the next issue. Let me see if I can grab it right here, because I think I got it in my stack of Comics Crazy review books to come. But yeah, we're going to be looking at this issue next. Spider-Man 347, which another great cover, but I'll review that when we get to it. But this issue right here, 346, amazingly done. Love the artwork here. I love the use of the extreme perspective angles where there's a scene where Spider-Man or Peter Parker is jumping out of the way and trying to hide from Venom, you know, hiding up on top of the building. There's another scene where Spider-Man is avoiding getting hit by that steel girder that Venom threw at him. The perspective was done very well on that as well. But we get, you know, a very great action sequence through, like, it starts kind of like in the middle and goes all the way to the end of the book of Spider-Man having to deal with Venom. And he's kind of always at a disadvantage. You know, Venom's always one step ahead, and to the point where we figure out that Venom was always in control of the situation, that now he's even frozen Spider-Man and has Spider-Man at his mercy. So, you know, I love this book. I love the artist, Eric Larson. As always, I always enjoyed his artwork. He was a big inspiration on me as an artist, and you can see why in this book with the way he draws his figures and the action sequences. It has a great look for comic books, but also still has a very cartoony feel as well. So if you have this issue, let me know what you think about it in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit that like button so we can get my man Venom here some Listerine or something to clean his mouth, because his mouth is looking real nasty on this cover. And make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you're here for when I do the next issue of Amazing Spider-Man on Chris Crazy House Presents Comics Crazy. And as always, make sure you go ahead and comment on this book and let me know what you thought about it and the artwork or the artist, and if you have these books in your own collection. Anyway, Chris Crazy House signing out. Peace.